Told tonight that the Pentagon is adjusting its military operations in Syria to protect American forces on the ground. This in the aftermath of the U.S. strike designed to punish the Bashar al-Assad regime for a deadly chemical attack. We're back with Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who met with Bashar al-Assad in Syria back in January. So let me just button this up, Congresswoman. I take it you were deeply disappointed by the president's decision last night. Is that right?
It made me sad and it made me angry to see that President Trump took this reckless action without really considering, frankly, the dire consequences. You've talked about in your report Russia's presence in Syria. There is no question that by launching a military attack, which is illegal and unconstitutional, against Russia, against Syria for that matter. Syria is very closely allied with Russia. Russia has their military on the ground there. So what we're talking about here really is the very high potential for a direct military conflict between the United States and Russia, the two world's nuclear powers, risking, therefore, whether intentional or unintentional, nuclear consequences.
If the Pentagon were to show you, Congressman, hard evidence convincing you that Bashar al-Assad's regime launched these chemical attacks against these civilians and these kids, would you change your mind and say, yes, what the U.S. did with these Tomahawk cruise missiles was justified?
No, Wolf, because escalating a counterproductive, destructive regime change war is harmful for the Syrian people and is harmful for the United States and our national security interests. We need to learn our lessons from the past. In Iraq and in Libya both, these arguments are made for humanitarian reasons to go in and overthrow these dictators, to go in and launch these wars. We've seen in both of those examples how the Iraqi people and the Libyan people have suffered far more as a result of our wars. More people have died. The countries have been destroyed, become failed nations, and counterproductive to our interests directly, terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda have only grown stronger and stronger, gaining footholds in these countries that they didn't have before. So for whether it's Senator John McCain or President Trump or any of these other people who are advocating for an escalation of this counterproductive regime change war, they're not recognizing the obvious truth, which is that it will result in a worse off situation for the Syrian people, more death, more destruction, more refugees, and it will result in our enemy, terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, growing stronger.
If President Trump didn't act and more chemical weapons strikes were launched against Syrian civilians from that same air base, how would you feel?
Look, we've got to look at the facts and understand exactly what happened. You can talk about a number of hypothetical situations. The United Nations yesterday was debating and drafting and going through different amendments, a resolution that would have immediately launched an independent investigative team into Syria to determine exactly what happened in that attack, and then to have the evidence necessary to take something to the International Criminal Court, to actually prosecute President Assad if he was found responsible. We've got to be deliberative and recognize the facts on the ground before determining what potential courses of action are available to us.
Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.
Just ahead, we'll get more reaction to the strike in Syria from a former national security advisor to President Obama. Retired General Jim Jones is standing by live. And more on the possibility of a major shakeup of the White House senior staff. Who might be affected? Our correspondents and analysts are digging for new information.
Oh my God.
Four distinct driving modes.
Now what do I do?